Now, Eyewitness Sports.
Welcome to another episode of Double OT with Mark Dondero. I'm Yianni. Plenty to talk to. It's that time in the sports calendar. Football, baseball, a lot to get to. Let's start with the Patriots. They had media day today. You were there, but let's go back to Sunday. Obviously a huge win, Sunday Night Football over the Cardinals. What was your biggest takeaway?
Jimmy Garoppolo. Guy was awesome. He exceeded my expectations. I thought he'd be good. I thought he would, manage the game. You don't want to talk like that, but I thought he would not make mistakes, and at the end of the day, the defense would win the game for the Patriots. That is not what happened. Garoppolo played better than the defense, and he really won that game for New England. He looked poised. He looked confident. He looked prepared. I don't know why I'm surprised, but he was all of those things. He played well. The defense didn't play as well as I was hoping, but Jimmy Garoppolo got it done. Jimmy Garoppolo is the story.
Absolutely, just because of the element of unknown. We didn't know what we'd see out of him, and he played like a savvy veteran when in reality it was his first NFL start. I think the touchdown to Chris Hogan in the first quarter was huge, getting that 10-point lead. But then those fumbles at that point, the Patriots could have folded over, and the Cardinals could have won that game. And he had that big drive in the fourth quarter, the 3rd and 15 to Amendola. And as you mentioned, poised, confident, a good rapport in the huddle, according to all his teammates afterwards, who said he was great. And only but good things with Jimmy G. And as you mentioned, you lose the turnover battle, you don't expect to win the game. Going on the road against an NFC championship level team, you lose the turnover battle and you win. A credit to Jimmy. Total team effort, 3 phases. And I will say this: the praise for Jimmy G should be the same, and I hope it would have been had they lost. But if the kick misses, the narrative changes, win or lose. But to that point, yeah, Jimmy G was still great.
The big difference would have been what I had to say about the defense. I gave them a B after the win. Had that kick gone through, they probably get a C- because
a game of inches.
They weren't, it wasn't awful, but I expected more. Let's go back to the offense. Rob Gronkowski injured his hamstring in camp back on August 15th and didn't play in the first regular season game on September 11th. Now, he missed practice last Sunday, came back, did practice during the week, then ended up not playing. What do you make of this whole Gronk injury scenario?
The whole thing has been really, really bizarre because typically when the Patriots make a player available to the media, like Gronk talked with us last Thursday, you think, oh, he's good to go. Oh, I'm not 100%, but why would the Pats let him talk to us if he wasn't going to go? And when he practiced the amount he's practiced, you'd assume he was a go. We talked about this earlier off camera. Gronk now has a different set of rules than the rest of the Patriot players when it comes to injury. He didn't like how his arm, the recovery happened with that. So we saw last year, the year before, the Gronkowski family, along with his agent Drew Rosenhaus, set out their own press release to the media, which is unheard of in Foxborough. But because of his importance, it seems like Bill Belichick is allowing that to happen. So it seems, I don't know this to be true, Gronk is playing by his own rules. If he's 90%, he's not going to go. 95%, he's not going to go. Gronk's looking out for Gronk, and Belichick and the Patriots are allowing it, so he's not going to go until he's 100%.
And you know what? I'm okay with that. I'm okay with the Patriots. I'm obviously okay with Gronk looking out for Gronk, and I'm okay with the Patriots being careful with this guy because January is when you need him. They just proved they could win these big games without Gronk on the road against Super Bowl contenders. So they could rest him. They're not that they'll win every game without him, but they could rest him for weeks. And we're hearing that might happen because if he doesn't play against the Dolphins, the next game is on a short week against the Texans at home. The other thing is if he injured the hamstring on August 15th and couldn't play on September 11th, that must have been some heck of an injury. Something more than just a little tweak. So it's worth monitoring.
I think it's more serious for sure. All right, Patriots and Dolphins this Sunday, the home opener for Jimmy G and the Pats. New England lost at the end of last year to Miami. They won when they came here, I think, on a Thursday night. Belichick talked about that at length today. What do you see in this matchup?
Bill Belichick really salty about that loss last year. Really. So usually you don't hear him talk and refer
back
to
home field advantage.
Maybe a trip to the Super Bowl and all that. But usually he doesn't talk and go back and sound as bitter about any defeat. That one really bothered him. I expect the defense to come out in this game and play like I expected them to play in Arizona. Ryan Tannehill, the Dolphins, historically not very good in Foxborough. I think they make a statement, and I think they try to play up to the level of their quarterback, who before last week didn't have any NFL starts. So maybe they were a little embarrassed how they almost let that game get away from them in Arizona. I think they play well, they create turnovers, and they win this game 24-13.
All right,
Patriots.
I think the Patriots win by 10 points. I know the Dolphins have a good front seven. They get after the quarterback, but I think the Patriots cater a game plan to where Garoppolo is getting it out pretty early and often, and I think they're going to score their points. Miami didn't do anything offensively in Seattle last week. I'm not completely sold on Ryan Tannehill. I know Belichick was singing his praises today, but he does that with everyone. And I know they have a new coach in Gase, but I'm not sold on their offense. I think the Patriots holds them in the teens. They put up something in the 20s. So I think New England 24-14, something similar, I think, what you just said.
Okay, so the Patriots, as far as the team goes, I usually stay away from their players in terms of fantasy because you never know who they're going to feature.
True.
But big picture, fantasy sports. Have fantasy sports change the way that fans root for teams?
All right, I think fantasy sports has been good for NFL, the brand, because everyone has a fantasy team, if not one, perhaps two. So they're in not only on their team, but on all the teams because they need Antonio Brown to score. They need Adrian Peterson to score or whoever. So it makes everyone invested in all 16 NFL games over the course of the week. What I don't like is when these losers say, I don't care if the Patriots win, I need 18 points from Deshaun Jackson of the Redskins, and they're rooting for Washington over New York. Now, that's not everyone, but your individual needs for your fantasy team should never supersede the team you grew up rooting for. As long as that's the case, I'm fine with fantasy. The NFL is, reaping benefits off it. The NFL is the perfectly catered sport for gambling, for fantasy, and it's the one sport where you'll watch any game regardless of who's in it, unlike maybe the NBA, baseball, hockey, where a midseason game between the St. Louis Blues and the Canucks no one cares about.
Now, you'll never get me on board with a fantasy freak that does that roots for the fantasy over the actual team that they would root for. You will never. I'm not obviously like that. No way. But I think of it as akin to the cell phone. It's changed the game. It has changed the way fans root. The cell phone has changed the way families interact. People are in the house, sitting on the couch. Everybody's on the device. But at the same time, the device has its advantages, as does fantasy. Fantasy, instead of being just interested in the Patriots, I'm interested in the Thursday night game, Bills-Jets, because I have a fantasy interest in the game, or there's players on my fantasy team that I care about, or I have money at stake vis-a-vis the fantasy league I'm in, so there's a rooting interest there. So it's done some things positive. I'm not a big fantasy guy. I like daily fantasy more than anything else. But yeah, it's certainly changed the way that we've rooted for games and teams.
That's all Shannon Heggie talks about is your fantasy team. Fantasy baseball, I am not in on that. Montecalvo swears by it.
Not in on
I can't
that.
pay attention to 162 baseball games. Absolutely no way. Speaking of baseball, Red Sox in pretty good shape right now to make the playoffs. 2 games up in the AL East. The Yankees 4 back in the AL East, but only 2 away in the wild card. There is a scenario, Mark, in which both teams could make the playoffs. They wouldn't see each other to the ALCS. But how much do we need another Red Sox-Yankees postseason matchup?
I need it. I would love it because it's been absent from our lives for 10 years. And if for nothing else.
12 years, 04.
12 years. For nothing else, just for nostalgic reasons, just for a trip down memory lane, because that, as bad as 03 was for Boston, and 04 obviously euphoric, just to relive those days, the 95 quarter, all up in arms about the Yanks and Sox. Now, nothing's ever as good as your first kiss, and it won't match what the Red Sox did in 04 for a Red Sox fan. But I'd still love to see it. I'd still love to see the juice between the two teams. And I just miss it. I miss the rivalry. I miss going back and forth to New York, the coverage, the bickering, the beanballs, everything. I miss it. I want to see it again.
I don't think it'll ever reach the heights that it did in 03 and 04. There was so much at stake. The curse of the Bambino, 86 years. Everyone knows the story at this point. So many characters. A-Rod, Pedro, Schilling, Jeter. I mean, those teams
Manny,
were Hall of Fame
Poppy.
teams. But it would be great. This rivalry needs a jolt. Because I don't think the regular season games mean a fraction of what they meant to us growing up when you live and died with every Red Sox-Yankees pitch. It would be huge. It would be awesome. Rosters have turned over, obviously, but some young blood in there, that would be great. It would be huge. Not only, and baseball, I think, needs it because if your team, and I think the numbers show this, baseball is a very local sport. The Red Sox in the playoffs, New England's watching. But we're not watching if it's Padres and San Francisco Giants, unlike the NFL. Red Sox Yankees is one of those series that would captivate the whole country, and you need that in the fall going against the NFL because we know nowadays baseball can't compete with the NFL.
Be big for baseball, big for the American League, and it would just be fun.
It would be huge. Yeah, it would be huge.
Speaking of fun, Bill Belichick, Bruce Springsteen. Springsteen, actually, talking about the Red Sox, has performed at Fenway Park. On Wednesday night, he's going to perform at Gillette Stadium. Bill Belichick has said that he has been to Bruce Springsteen concerts in the past. Do you think Bill is a good time at a Bruce Springsteen concert?
I do, because everyone who knows Bill Belichick outside of this persona he's created as football coach, grumpy football coach, says he's a good time, he's fun, he's a music guy. Bon Jovi's at all the games and practices with Robert Kraft. And it goes back to, I think, Springsteen's been relevant for 40 years, but I think the height of Springsteen was the 80s, and Belichick was an assistant for the New York Giants, the defensive coordinator, so I can see him going to some pretty rowdy concerts in the New York, New Jersey area. And now, if he were to go tonight, he's probably sitting in a suite and drinking some Pinot Grigio, but in the 80s, he was probably rocking out, cutting off the sleeves, looking like Bruce, going nuts. So yeah, good time. I don't think he's a schoolgirl at a NSYNC or Bieber concert, but good time.
He would definitely be a good time. I'm not interested in the Bill today, obviously.
Yeah.
I want to think about the Bill of yesteryear when he was at those wild concerts. And my biggest question is, how was he at those concerts? Was he singing along with the lyrics at the top of his lungs? Was he spilling his beer on you? Did he have beer muscles? Was he hooting and hollering, hoo, hoo, fist pumping? That's what I want to know.
Maybe some air guitar?
Probably a little bit.
It's hard not
get the
to air
leg
guitar.
involved, with the leg.
The leg guitar.
So I don't know how he would have been. We know he's loose. He's more loose than he is at a press conference when he's away from the media, obviously. I don't know how much that translates into a good time, but he definitely would be a lot of fun to be with, and I would just love to see what the real Bill Belichick, the younger Bill Belichick, would have been like at a Bruce concert, trying to impress a woman, trying to show off a little bit.
I think he is probably still socially awkward. Like, he can be cool, but he's not. He's not galvanizing section 212. Come on, let's get the wave going.
Yeah.
Speaking of Bill and music, he plays a lot of old classic rock at practices, as we've heard. What do you think he's listening to on the way into Foxborough every morning?
If he can figure out how to turn the radio on, probably. I'm assuming he's not listening to sports
80s
talk.
on 8 if he's got
some
XM,
80s on 8.
70s
It's something
on
satellite, absolutely, or maybe some talk.
Politics?
No, not politics.
I'd say rock and roll.
Yeah, it's probably some music.
Tony says AC/DC. Why do you say that, Tony?
It pumps.
Yeah. AC/DC's got a good portfolio of stadium rock music.
Or probably some kind of documentary listening, like coaching, something about coaching, or I don't know.
Only one could imagine. I'm sure you'll ask him next week.
I'm not going to ask that question, no.
All right, that'll do it for the latest episode of Double OT. Catch the full episode online on WPRI.com and maybe on iTunes one of these days. I think so.
Of course.
Soon.
Lee's working on it right now.
Yep. Hashtag WPRI Double OT, and catch our high school football show, The Blitz, this Friday, 11:15. Thanks for watching.